HuDost. You guys are at the Goose, as we like to call it, Wild Goose, and you're playing tomorrow night.
Yes.
And are you all doing a workshop too as well?
We just taught a workshop.
Tell me about the workshop.
So it was really nice. We had Dan with us, Dan from Jars of Clay.
Dan Hasseltine from Jars of Clay.
And we've done songwriting together. The guys from Jars are on our last 2 albums, and I feel like I've learned a lot in terms of the songwriting process, sharing that space and collaborating. I think we can learn a lot through collaboration.
Yeah.
And we, long story short, the way we met Dan was doing advocacy for a nonprofit organization that we've been working with for many years.
The One campaign.
One campaign. And we were on Capitol Hill and had meetings all day, and Dan was there also partly on behalf of One and partly on behalf of his nonprofit, Bloodwater. And we connected through activism and advocacy, and then kind of discovered each other through music. And basically the workshop we just did was talking about what it means to put your own experience, your own story into song. And so we shared a little bit about our own collaborative songwriting, and then we also did a little songwriting exercises with the group. It was really fun.
So had them create their own music. Yeah.
Yes, we had a very short
50 minutes.
In 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, let's get a song happening.
It's going to go to number 1 already. I can feel it. What is the difference between creating something by yourself or as a duo as opposed to collaborating with others when you're creating music?
The more people you get involved, the more perspectives you have, and that's a wonderful thing. And for me, it gives a lot of insight into what is the shared perspective and what is the individual perspective, and how can we marry those through music, not just in terms of like how we see the world, but also how we play music, how we write and do that. So I love collaboration. I think it it shakes things up, So
We've been doing a lot of collaboration this year. We just, over the past few months, have been a part of the Global Music Match, where we've been teamed up through like the Folk Alliance International with different artists from different countries and working on each other's songs and co-creating. And so that's just like right up our alley.
Do you have a story that you can think of where you have learned something about the song that you thought you were writing in collaboration and it becoming something else?
That's a great question. I don't know if I can think of specific examples, but I can say that often it is the song that guides me to the meaning rather than me guiding the song to the meaning.
Yeah. I want to hear a little bit more of that. Can you tease that apart? That's fascinating.
Well, I will just say some of the songs that we write, and I'm the main lyricist, and some of the songs that we write are about specific things where I go in and I'm struggling with something, or I feel the need to communicate something specific, right? So there's one set of songs. Other songs come to me more through the music, and the words then need to be edited more because they're coming first through as sound, and then as I go through it more and more, I go, oh, this is what's emerging. It's almost like interpretation of a dream that you can then voice in a way where other people can understand it.
Wow.
So it's really different. I don't have just one way of writing.
Sure, yeah.
So that's kind of a different way of experiencing it. And with that, often I will share that there are often really beautiful metaphors that can be there in the lyrics that later I go, oh, that's about that. And speaking of that, I will share.
About your surgery?
Well, I will share about arrhythmia. I wasn't going to share about that, but there's a song that we wrote several years ago, and at the time
Called Arrhythmia.
Long story short, it was about that experience of how people we love, we come in at different times and we leave at different times, and there are these beautiful periods of overlap. And in that time, my father was about to leave because of cancer, and so it was that experience of we just have these times that are overlap in our lives that we have to just hold dear to us and just be present with. But the song ended up being about more than my father. It was just about that whole thing. His brother then, very unexpectedly, he was training for a marathon and literally dropped dead. He had a heart arrhythmia.
Of an arrhythmia.
He had an arrhythmia.
Wow.
And it was like, so that was quite, that was...
All of a sudden, anytime we played that song for a while after that, we were just like,
Yeah.
it was super heavy.
And it was one of those things where you were just asking, like, the meaning, it was one of those things where the meaning of that song became more and more clear
Right.
as we
It meant one thing, and then the depth of that from what you're talking about just got more and more resonant within your own lives. Yeah.
Same thing
Yeah.
around your brain surgery too, but that's even
Yeah,
deeper.
I mean, that's a whole other thing too, actually. Like, there's a song that I wrote where I literally had
2008.
the lyrics. Let me think of the right lyrics for a second. There is a place of lucid living as close to the brain as the cheekbone, right? So I had those words in it. It was very soon after writing
Place
that.
of lucid living.
A place of lucid living as close to the brain as the cheekbone. And it was right after that I started to have seizures that were not physical seizures, they were visual seizures, and discovered I had a brain tumor.
Wow.
And so it was like this, that was another, wow, I wonder if something was coming through in song that I hadn't
Yeah.
known
But they
was
actually, when
coming
they
through.
operated on you, that's how they got in, was through
Through the
Yeah,
cheekbone.
through the
Through the
cheekbone.
Wow.
Yeah,
they get the tumor out.
Yeah.
yeah.
But and you're here at Wild Goose, which is at this intersection of music and justice and faith and art, and you're working with Dan
Hasseltine.
Thank you. I'm having trouble pronouncing words today. So Dan
Yeah.
Hasseltine, Jars of Clay. I'm curious about you and your own kind of experience in those intersections. Where do those things of faith and justice fit into what you do, or not fit into what you do?
If anything, it's like, where do they not overlap? You know, I don't know if that they, I mean, maybe you can talk about it, but I think when we first started playing music, it was like these separate worlds, and then it's like the more comfortable we became in ourselves and in our own paths, the more they became this glorious melting pot of those worlds coming together.
So it's a holistic rather than a compartmentalized, and we do tend to live these compartmentalized lives, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like to have that coming together and that experience of those different parts of life?
Good question. Well, I mean, we both met as spiritual seekers and as musicians. So right off the bat, that was...
At a giant Sufi gathering.
Yeah.
Which the Sufis were, you know, it goes back to some of the multiple meanings, like the Sufi poets. It was a Rumi festival, and like Rumi and Hafiz, those guys, their love poems to God, you know, you could read them as relationships, or you can interpret various layers of meaning to that stuff. So. So that's where we met. It was at
at a Rumi festival.
Interfaith Sufi Rumi festival. So
wow.
Yeah, so that's where we came together and connected as musicians, then fell in love. So already that's a whole lot of messy, you know, merging of worlds. And then, I mean, we both were just really drawn to doing activist and advocacy work. And so kind of we're able to come together in that quest too. It took a little while before I felt like I could actually write songs about that, because I think maybe it's just my own struggle, but I think it's very easy for that work to become very preachy through the format of song if you're not really careful. So it took a lot of some amount of struggle in my own self and as a songwriter to understand how that could come together. But once it did, it was a very liberating experience, because I realized how powerful advocacy can be through music. So
it's the same with the spiritual music though too.
It's
how to sing a song like that without it seeming preachy or
Yeah.
higher than or
Sure.
one-upping or
Right.
or
let me tell you how
self-righteous,
to do how much better I am than you, or yeah.
Because the reality is like, maybe I'm biased as a musician, but I think spirit comes through in the most pure form through music and through what we can experience through that instead of what we're trying to process with it.
There's an African proverb I heard a friend say that is, the spirit does not descend without a song.
Yeah, that's
Which I think
good.
is really lovely.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for this arrhythmia of our time crossing each other's paths, so thank you.
Me too.